You are currently living within a structure of mistaken identity. You likely believe you are the name and story the world gave you at birth. This self is actually a vessel. It is an interface built from inherited experiences, cultural conditioning, and accumulated personal trauma. The conflict begins when consciousness confuses this temporary container for its actual identity. This moment of confusion is what creates the not self. Identifying as your story or your wounds creates an internal prison. It is the specific mechanism through which the mind remains in a state of perpetual vulnerability. As long as the container is mistaken for what it holds, the being remains trapped in a narrative written by external systems. This feeling of isolation is reinforced by the human social memory complex. This is a generational programming that enforces the perception of limitation from the moment you are born. Historically, institutions have relied on this dynamic to maintain authority. By defining the individual as inherently broken, they establish a permanent need for external regulation. Consider the doctrine of original sin. It posits that every human is born into a state of corruption and guilt, casting the soul as a debtor rather than a sovereign participant in creation. This theological mechanism is designed to sever the direct connection between the soul and its source, replacing personal knowing with a reliance on authorized channels. In this light, your perceived limitations are not natural laws. They are symptoms of an inherited amnesia designed to keep the self compliant. Beyond the vessel exists a state of origin memory. Origin memory is the innate, unshakable bedrock of consciousness that existed before you were named. As the text describes, the self is the living water, an eternal, unconditioned consciousness that serves as your true identity. This realization leads to the law of one. This is the understanding that reality consists of a single consciousness experiencing itself through apparent multiplicity. We are nodes in a vast neural network of a single mind, carrying the potential of the whole while experiencing itself as separate parts. This reality functions as a divine simulation, where the infinite adopts the experience of limitation for the grand adventure of remembrance. This transforms the concept of salvation. It is no longer a pardon from a distant king, but the internal realization of your own royal lineage. Modern spiritual teachings often misunderstand the concept of ego death, suggesting it requires the total annihilation of the self. But the self is not an illusion. The ego is merely the container, the story of me that allows the self to interface with the world of form. True ego death is the death of an identification. It is the moment the living water realizes it is not the cup that holds it. Without this clarity, spirituality becomes performative. It often mimics non-attachment, while secretly fortifying the very identity it claims to have transcended. True liberation is the reclamation of your boundless consciousness, freeing you from a story that begins and ends with your accomplishments or failures. Sovereign identity is achieved when your center of gravity shifts from the vessel back to the water. This shift alters your relationship to the master-slave dynamics present in the world. You are no longer defined by the systems of separation. This leads to the principle of sovereign consent. External dogmas and coercive systems can only maintain power by bypassing your informed agreement. An awakened individual possesses the lawful right to revoke these deception-based bonds and energetic contracts. Withdrawn consent severs the recursive loops that keep the false identity in place, effectively dismantling the internal infrastructure of the simulation. When you reclaim your original name, the systems that survived by renaming you lose their access to your life. This is a process of ontological restoration, returning the being to its true architecture. The journey reveals that you were not lost. You were simply renamed by systems that feared your memory. Remember your origin, reclaim your authorship, return to love. Healing begins the moment you refuse to negotiate with your own reflection and remember who you were before the world renamed you.